Hey fam, it's Ez from Ez Migrations. Welcome back. Thank you. I'm so happy you stopped by. If this is your first time visiting me, thank you. I'm so happy you found me. This particular episode will be about South Africa. South Africa is a beautiful, large country. It even has two countries within the country. So it's layered and loaded, and this video would be forever if I just spoke about the country at large. So I'm going to break it down and speak about Johannesburg first. Johannesburg, South Africa, home of Mandela, home of just the Soweto students who rose up against the atrocities of apartheid. Johannesburg is so beautiful. The other day I was explaining to someone that what I particularly like about Johannesburg, number one, are the people, right? The people are just like vibrant and colorful and expressive. Like they show up like fully as themselves in a bold and like this is me type of way, like unapologetic, and I love that. It's like if we had a crayon box, South Africans use, or specifically Johannesburg, they use all the colors in the crayon box, right? To express themselves and show up. And it's so nice. And I don't really particularly like small talk. And everyone that I met, especially like the younger generation, when I met them, it would just be, the conversations were so meaningful and intellectual, and you can just like go on for hours just talking and you leave learning something. When I first arrived, this was years ago, I went by myself. It was my first solo trip to South Africa, to Africa, and I chose South Africa because number one, you don't need any shots or vaccines, and I'm sure they recommend some, but it's not required. And it just seemed like an easy entry level. And Johannesburg was rumored to be this like horrible, dangerous place. So I kind of like leaned towards danger. So I still wanted to go see it. So I only booked like a few days. And then the rest of my time I had in Cape Town. But in Josie, like, as soon as I got at the airport, like my taxi driver was like, welcome home. Right? And then I go to my Airbnb host says the same thing. The neighbor from the Airbnb host greets me the same way. It was just like, thank you. Like, this feels amazing. And the people, they're just warm too, like very community based. And the area that I stayed in, because I also lived in Johannesburg, I was in Johannesburg during the COVID lockdown, the pandemic, when it first happened. A 2-week trip turned into like 10 months of me being in Johannesburg. And this particular area was called Yeoville. Now, Yeoville is where a lot of different people from different countries in Africa come, and they'll stay in this particular area. So it's known to be just like multicultural because there's so many different people that have migrated that are living there. And that has benefits because I get to try food from all over Africa, right? Like Yeoville has a market, and in Yeoville market you can get dried greens. Yes, dried greens are a thing. Like your collards and your kale, like just imagine you sun dry them and just like let them dry out, and they dice them and you can cook them. Like it's like dehydrated, you're rehydrating them when you cook, but it's a great way to like travel and export them. But the market, you can get food from people from Cameroon, the Congo, Nigeria. Like I've tried everything from everywhere, like Ethiopia. All of that is there in Yeoville. Like you can find, like it's a food little capital. And just designs and seamstress. Like I started my first, Johannesburg like birthed my first collection. Like the designer in me, it gave me that confidence to just be myself and fully explore what self-expression is for me, just because the people are fully embodying that I was like, what is that for me? And I took to the patterns and the prints and the textiles and started like a clothing collection. And like Lesotho, as I mentioned earlier, is one of the countries that are within South Africa. And little fun fact, Wakanda Forever, I don't even know if that's the name, Black Panther, that movie, when they were wearing those blankets, there's a scene where they had the blankets draped over them. That is like the typical traditional blankets of Lesotho, where the temperature there is normally like it's cold, it's a colder place, so these blankets provide warmth. So I wanted to turn that into like fashion, like my twist on it. And I wanted a trench coat with these blankets. So I went to the store and bought 2 blankets and mixed it, had the seamstress that I was using, mixed 2 blankets and made like a nice long trench coat. And I styled this particular shoot. There's a little picture of it. That's my friend. She participated, and I shot this with her phone. Like, styled her, did her hair, everything. Her mom didn't even recognize her. But like, that's just some of the inspiration that I received while being in Johannesburg. Just that creativity, and it's just flowing, like overflowing in Johannesburg. So if you are a creative person and you just like colors and vibrancy and music, because that's the best dance scene I've ever experienced in my travels. Second up will be Cuba, but Johannesburg, man, the way they feel music, right? Like the way they connect to rhythm and feel that rhythm in their body is just, it's beautiful. It's art. It's just like you just see them flowing. I remember going to this club in Maboneng, which is a cool section in Johannesburg. But there was this club, and I went with these group of friends that I made, and in the club, like, I love to dance. Like, and Ami piano music is the music genre in Johannesburg, and it just reminded me a lot of like New Jersey house music and soulful house music, like the music that I grew up on, and how they feel the music and the rhythm is very familiar to like home for me. So I love it. And in the club, and I remember the people that I'm with was like, you don't like to dance? I'm like, I do. I'm just like in awe because I was just watching. Like, just think of like your Stomp the Yards or your dance shows, like the movies that you see where it'll be like a group and there's no battling happening. It's just people just dancing and moving and like just flowing. And the best, like, there's a show on Netflix called Jiva. So if you like really want to see what it's like in the clubs of Johannesburg, watch Jiva. That is pretty accurate. It shows you like the Ami piano music. If you are new to it, you just get to see people vibing out. Like, Jiva is just about this young girl. It's in Cape Town, I believe, dancing and just doing dance competitions, but you get to see her and her friends. It's nice. It's a cool show. Check it out. Support South Africa in Johannesburg on Netflix. But aside from the people and the culture, the beauty of the country, my goodness, like, I've been around, but Johannesburg has some cool national parks that you can just go to, and they're expensive. Like, I remember my first time just being there and seeing like small little animals. There's no like wildlife. Those are further out from the city. It's a city, so it's not like you're not walking by giraffes and elephants in the city. Like, that's not happening in Johannesburg. But these national parks are just nice. Like, I would just meet up with friends, and our thing would be to just grab some wine and you can go to the national park. And there's this cool hostel that I stayed at, because during my stay, one of my stays, I've been to Johannesburg several times. One of my stays, there was some xenophobic attacks that were happening, and I just felt unsafe in the area that I was in. And while I was leaving with my friend, just walking through town to get to the other side, passed through this place, and I was like, I like the energy, I like the vibe. And it's called Once. I don't know what it's like now. This was like 4 years ago, but Once Hostel, man, their volunteers were like from different parts of South Africa, and we just hit it off and we vibed. Like, they took you on a tour every day. We went to the second highest point in Johannesburg, which is called North Cliff, to watch the sunset, and that was just a vibe. We was all up there. You have your wine, and South Africa has amazing wine, and it's so affordable. Like, it's good. You can go to Cape Town and check out the vineyards. I'll talk more about that in my Cape Town video. But just the landscape, just riding around and seeing like the hills and the mountains and having that accessible. They have really beautiful parks where you can just be like, I like to be barefoot, so you could be barefoot and people are sitting on the grass. Like, I've been to other countries and the parks have like benches and like people aren't really like in the park, but this one, like, everybody is just there, and there's big beautiful trees. Like, I just fell in love with the trees. There was one particular park that was my favorite, especially during COVID when they finally allowed this to go out. I would be at this park all the time, and it has cool trees, so I would just go there. And there's like this river, and I love to be near water, so that was like my little safe haven, was the park. Que más? Just the people and the unity. Like, you could be in your house. What was cool about Johannesburg and a lot of different, like Zimbabwe was the same way too. And there'll just be a mama that's walking by and selling like veggies and greens. You don't even have to leave. People will come by and just knock on a gate and just selling their stuff. Even during COVID, that was clutch. But the landscape, the beauty of the people, and then like the food. I don't eat meat, but I love that like fresh veggies are plentiful. Like that was my first time ever gardening, and that happened during COVID, and that was the first time playing in dirt. The person I was staying with taught me how to like use my hands, like in terms of like gardening, and also I was using clay. Like Johannesburg is like you have your small businesses everywhere in each person's house. Like if you're looking for a welder, person is around the corner, and there was a person who had a kiln. So when I was doing clay, they had a kiln around the corner, which worked because things were closed for COVID. But these small businesses in everybody's homes was still up and running. So I was making clay. Like that was the first time I carved with clay, paper mesh, like just learning new things, learning how to use my hands actually, and other skills. And gardening was something that I loved, like just connecting to the soil in Africa and Johannesburg. That soil was rich, and just I looked forward to every day playing in the dirt. But I had sectioned off the little garden and would go and just like harvest. Like when it was time to cook, I just go and get tomatoes and everything from the garden because they were growing like crazy. But that was my first time really connecting to soil. So I had like 2 times gardening in Johannesburg, and then when I lived in Somaliland in the desert. Yes, I grew in the desert. I had a very pretty garden. But yeah, so the food outside of that, it's mostly meat. So if you like meat, and then again, like I said, that there's so many different countries, people from different countries in Africa, that you can try everything. So one of the things I did like, which is what they'll have for breakfast, is called chakalaka, which is like these beans, like your baked beans, but cooked in a different sauce, like almost like spicy. It's nice. You put it on bread for toast. Like, so the taxi ring, like I will call this the surge protector, like that strip that you plug from your outlet to plug everything else in to keep it and keep everything running and protected, is the taxis, like the local taxis of South Africa in general, but in Johannesburg, like that is the pulse of the city. It gets people to and from. Like most of the locals are taking these local taxis, and it's like a van with a 3-row, and you pile people up. I remember one time this like lady who was nice, curvaceous woman, she came in and it was like little seats left, and then somebody else was coming on, and they told her, like the guy was like, "Mama, pull your stuff up." So she like pulled up her hips and everything so somebody could come in. But I feel like if you're looking for an accountant, you need to take a local taxi and see who was like the mathematician, because it takes skills. I'm always intimidated, like when it's time to pass the money up. Like I never want anybody to tap me on the shoulder and give me their money, because you got to count which bill belongs to who, how many people, and how much change goes to each bill. And the locals, because they're so used to this is like clockwork. But I'm always just impressed on how the system works, right? And then like when you get to the taxi rank, there'll be music, like depending on where you're based, music and people just dancing. But the local taxis of Johannesburg or South Africa and other countries in Africa is the pulse. Like that's what connects everything and everyone. If they go on strike and no local taxis are moving, things can't get done. The city does not function. People can't get to where they need to go. So that was cool to see and witness. I remember my first one, I was just like chilling. I think the first one that I took was in Cape Town actually, and I'll do that one in that video. But that's it. So like if you're looking for just a vibrant, colorful place where you see just melanin everywhere, like all shades of melanin, and you just want to be with interesting, intriguing, intellectual, educated people and just learn a new way of life, and I think it's a great training wheel country for Africa as an introduction to go for your first time, because especially as me, I felt safe. Like Maboneng is quite gentrified, and then you have your other parts, I forget, there's an area in where it's like middle class Black Africans, because in South Africa, that is the one country in Africa where you have to distinguish like white African, Black African, and colored. Colored is a separate race group where They are very proud to be colored. Like anytime I've met a colored person, they let me know they were colored. Like with an introduction, hi, my name is and I'm colored type of thing. But it's not seen as derogatory, and it doesn't hold the same weight as it does in the States. To me, the best way to compare it would be to like biracial individuals, people who have like half one race, half the other race, right? So they have this racially ambiguous look to them, is kind of what the colors. It goes more in depth, like more in terms of like your last name and your language and all of that, because some colors will speak Afrikaans. But anyway, so you have these different groups of people, and there is a black African middle class, a small one, but there is a town that you can go, like a part of Johannesburg where you can go there. So Johannesburg varies. You don't have to be in like a more urban area. You can go and be in like the suburbs, and Ubers are super cheap to get around if you're not going to take the local, because the local taxi, you need to know your streets and you need to know your way to get around, and if you don't know that, it can be quite difficult. But Uber was it very affordable out there. Food is affordable. Johannesburg, South Africa in general I'm not sure what the rand to like dollar and euro and pound is now, but it was almost like going to Asia, like very affordable. You can get a lot with your money in Johannesburg, and just stay in nice places. It's a nice way to treat yourself and just to see Africa, like just to enter an entry. Like a lot of people don't write South Africa off, and I understand why, right? Just because of the history and the diversity of the country, right? A lot of other Africans won't see South Africa as Africa, but then some will just appreciate and respect it from Mandela and what he did, and just how South Africa has been very resilient and fighting for what they want. Like Miriam Makeba, like there's a lot of powerful, prominent people who came out of South Africa. So South Africa is a force, especially Johannesburg. Like Johannesburg is different from the other parts of South Africa that I visited. Even their music, the best radio time too. Like I listen to the freaking radio a lot out there. The music they would play old school like R&B from the States, but album songs, like songs that you wouldn't hear on the radio in the States, but they were playing them on the radio out there. So I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's a place I call like home. There's like a few countries in the world that I can go to, and it just feels like home. I spent a lot of time there. I have a lot of friends that I've made there, like great connections, and I cherish my time that I've had in Johannesburg. I actually miss it from time to time and look forward to going back. There's just a lot of information. South Africa has the Credo of mankind, right? Like it's a place you can go visit, a museum where they have like the oldest skulls from the human race there. And yeah, that is Johannesburg. If you have questions, I am willing to do another video talking about Johannesburg. I feel like I rushed through it, but that is like an overview. Yes, like any other place, there is crime, and you should use your own caution and judgment, but it's no different than like your New York. It's a big metropolis city. They have a downtown that's booming. You can have different parts of town, like you have your Chinatown, you have your section of town where you'll have your Ethiopians, and you can get Ethiopian food and like their spiritual things to burn. Like, so it's just very diverse, and I love the diversity. Diverse in terms of like people from all over the African continent are there, and just racially, like there's people look diverse too. So it's nice. It's takes away what you think of freaking like Africa, at least for me. Like it just demystified things. Like this is real, like oh, this is beautiful. Just to ride down the street and just have people really embracing you and treating you like one of them, and walking around and seeing so many people who look like me. Like if I didn't speak, I would blend in with the people, you know. I started wrapping my hair from being in Johannesburg. Johannesburg, all in all, has like reawakened my creativity within me and just my hustle spirit, because there's so many hustlers and go-getters and innovators out there. You'll just see people the talent is so raw, and I loved it. So you can do bungee jumping at the Soweto Tower. Soweto is also a vibe. You can go see Mandela's first home where him and Winnie lived. There's museums, cool museums downtown. There was, oh man, so I will insert the name. I have to look, but Constitution Hill. So Constitution Hill, I highly recommend. Each tour guide I heard is different, but I had a really good lady, and she breaks down like the colored group, way more in depth than I can. But it's Constitution Hill is where they would jail a lot of during apartheid, like people who walked around and you didn't have like proper papers. Cops would stop you and check your papers to see if you were legit to be there, illegal, and if not, you would get in prison, right? Or just if you were fighting against the inequalities that were happening out there, you will also get locked up. So Mandela was there, Gandhi was jailed at this particular place. It has a lot of history. I remember just seeing there was a cell where they kept young little girls, and you just see how they were laid on the floor and how the mistreatment that they received as young people. And it's a cool place to go for some history on Johannesburg. And as you're up there, you get to see like the bird's eye view, and you understand essentially why people are behaving in the manner that they are, because they're crowded on top of each other, right? So just imagine if you had no space and you're seeing the same people every day, and if you have an issue with someone and they're just like right here, there's gonna be some things that happen. But Soweto, I come from New Jersey, right? New Jersey in the States, and I'm right next to New York. And I just hear all these things prior to going about Soweto, and I imagine something different when I heard like hood, or, you know, like, because in New Jersey and New York and parts of that, when you're in urban areas, there are things called project buildings, right? Where there's project housing, and these are tall buildings where they house a lot of people, and these are people who are on a different income level, so more on low income levels, right? Johannesburg and Soweto, people were in houses, right? I didn't see too many like project housing buildings. People had like their own house and like was farming and had like little plots of like gardens and growing, and that was just very different for me to see for what is considered like a hood, or like what people will say a ghetto or bad neighborhoods. Like, yes, there are some areas, but overall Soweto is large, you know? So just to group it as this one place and color it with one color doesn't really like do it any justice, because Soweto is large. And I had a friend there, so I spent time with them at their house, and with her and her family, and that was nice as well. But Johannesburg is special. It's really special. It's very colorful.
Is in this version. Now, as you again look deep, I'm not an artist, but I love the translation to this. Culturally, when one is wearing a hat, it's a symbol of education. We grew up poor, but with education we're going down. Yes. So, in any case, Nelson will always emphasize that education is the only key out of poverty. Lastly,
so yeah, that is Johannesburg, South Africa. If you've never been, check it out or add it to your list at least. I think it's worth going to see. And if anything, there's a lot of history there. There were a lot of people who were fighting against resistance and inequalities and just making it a home for Africans. And to me, that's enough to get you to go.
Women and children, they sit there on the ground. There is no grass carpet behind the door. We, the men, we sit on the high rise. Reason being, whenever there are enemies attacking the family, the door, when it opens, it can be able to protect you, the woman and the children, whilst we, the men, are driving the enemies outside. Why in Africa we let African women to sit on the ground, not on the high rise? It is because here in Africa, even today, we still believe in the mother nature. Women are so fortunate and special because of they are born in the mother nature. They get the first opportunity to absorb the rhythm and the positive energies of the mother nature by sitting on the ground, so that whenever they give birth, they can be able to transfer those energies and the rhythms to the children. That is
Stay tuned. I'll be continuing my journey from the 7 countries that I visited in Africa. The next one I'm thinking to do a video on is Botswana. So yes, and if you have more questions about Johannesburg, leave them in a comment. If you've been and some of the things that I mentioned resonate with you, also leave them in the comments. If there's something I didn't cover and you're just curious about, ask away and I'll do another video. But love and light, and hope to see you again later.